Okay, let's do some 10 questions. I like making questions. These lots.
Hopefully I'm prepared. Go ahead. Yeah. I've heard you do this so many times, so
I think I know the answer to this one already because I'm pretty sure I heard it on one of your YouTube videos. Which is your favorite Tom Petty album, if you could only pick one?
It is Wildflowers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, as you said, it's perfect. It is perfect, like Revolver. I wouldn't change a thing. So
yeah,
and it is an album I listen to often. So it's not, I said I would put Echo and Last DJ pretty close behind, and Highway Companion. I gravitate to his solo albums, even though, I mean, Mike Benmont, they're solo kind of, but I get it. And, Wildflowers, it's musical perfection. I remember hearing it in 1994. I loved it then. Just, for me, not to connect everything to the Beatles, but I hear the White Album. Like, it's Tom Petty's White Album to me. I think he spoke about this. All right. Or maybe I just think I heard this once, but I thought it was after, meeting George and getting to be friends with George. George kind of spoke about recording the White Album and doing the Esher demos on that, kind of home demos, and then going in the studio. The Beatles didn't really usually do that. They just kind of created in the studio and all that. And Tom did that for Wildflowers. I think that changed the recording of it in a lot of ways. If you listen to home demos, they're pretty close to the originals. I mean, not, they got enhanced, but they're not far off. He had a very clear vision going into the studio of what he wanted these songs to be. Yeah. Obviously, double album worth of material like the White Album, tons of tension and stress going on in the artists' lives during the making of these albums. So I just think there's such a connection to me. Not that the White Album sounds like Wildflowers exactly, but they're both a little acoustic-y, a little more acoustic, I would say, than some of their other albums. But I just find them similar, on a similar plane in the careers of those artists. So
I think another similarity there is that they're both sort of, nothing sounds like the White Album. Nothing in the Beatles catalog, nothing in the rock and roll canon, and nothing actually really sounds like Wildflowers either. In a very different way, but they're very singular albums. They're sort of that time capsule of an artist at a creative zenith at a very, very specific time in their lives. So they definitely share that kind of kinship too, I think, for sure. With a very small handful of other, I'd say probably Hunky Dory by Bowie is another one that's kind of that weird, or maybe even Heroes or something, where you've got that very specific thing and it sounds a very specific way because you've had this confluence of events and and
it's such an eclectic mix of songs. You got Helter Skelter and Honey Pie, and you've got, Wildflowers and Honey Bee. The Honey Connection, maybe. I don't know.
Here's the acid test, though. Do you ever listen to Rev 9? Does anyone ever listen to Rev 9?
It's not on my playlist if I listen, but if I'm listening to the White Album CD, I don't skip it.
Oh, really?
But again, I do consider the White Album my favorite Beatles album. Again, not necessarily the best. I think Revolver, maybe Sgt. Pepper, maybe Abbey Road technically are better, but I listen to the White Album more. So I don't know how to explain that. It just is.
Well, it's just whatever lands with you, right? So
I mean,
absolutely.
I love it all, but
Well, I'm curious about this one. Again, I think I know this one. Mudcrutch or the Traveling Wilburys?
All right. I've thought about this one a lot. So, I mean, it'd be so easy to say the Traveling Wilburys, 5 incredible artists coming together, putting aside their egos, making incredible music. I think I might prefer Volume 3. I might be in the minority, but I love Volume 3 as well.
Cool Dry Places on that album, and that's my jam, man.
But again, they're both great. I mean, what are the chances these 5 artists could do that and pull it off so well and do a second volume?
Yeah.
So it's an incredible story, and probably songwriting, I probably prefer that, but I'm going to go with Mudcrutch. I really am going to go with Mudcrutch, and I'm going to tell you why. I mean, I just think it's unprecedented what Tom Petty did with his former band. I mean, to go to the Beatles again, not to make this all about the Beatles, there is no way John Lennon and Paul McCartney were calling up the Quarrymen and getting back together and not only meeting with them and having a beer, but let's record a new album. Let's go on the road together. And as much as I love that, they were never doing that. And I would say 99.9% of successful musicians probably wouldn't do this. So to me, that, again, it just goes to show Tom Petty's character, just how the way he looks at things to bring back Mudcrutch.
Yeah.
And not only record with them, go back to the bass guitar, not really a frontman instrument for the most part. No offense to bass guitarists. I mean, there are frontman bass guitarists. Paul McCartney's one. But, he didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
But he did that, I'm sure, willingly. He did, gave up vocals on the CDs, on the albums. He shared the vocals like Mudcrutch used to do.
Yep.
And he goes out on the road. He takes it on the road
and plays
it's
small
a small
venues
club and plays small clubs.
Crazy.
So I look at that and I say, and I do really think the music's good on both. I think that you take the 2 Wilbury CDs and put the 2 Mudcrutch CDs, those 4 on a road trip, and you've got a great soundtrack. All 4,
absolutely,
they're just great. But then what makes it even better? He does it all again. 10 years later, whatever. He tells it, let's do it again. It's not a one-off thing. I want to do this again. Let's write songs. We'll do it all again. We'll go back on the road again. So that makes me say Mudcrutch, because I just think that is unprecedented to me in music history, or I can't think of something similar to that. And they did wonderful music. And so I'm going to go with Mudcrutch.
Yeah,
my final answer.
I can't think of anyone else who's done it. It's certainly not at that level, right? Certainly not at that level of packing out arenas and or outdoor stadiums things. It's going, I'm going to go back and do Resurrect this my previous band. Like, are you nuts? You cannibalize yourself. And I've never done. I've said this on the pod before, but as we were talking through this, I bet you we would have got the 3rd Mudcrutch album before we got another Heartbreakers album. Because I think that the big machine of, Tom said that they weren't that interested in going out on tour anymore, that the 40th anniversary probably would have been the last full tour. But Mudcrutch, way less pressure. You can do 20 dates. You could do a residency. You could do that. I bet you that would have been a more likely next step than us getting another full Heartbreakers album release cycle.
It could have been.
I'll ask Ben Mont if I ever get to speak to him.
Yeah, so I hope you get Mike and Ben Mont on, and
hoping so too. Really hoping so.
I think I hope that the Petty estate, I don't know if they've ever reached out to you. I hope they appreciate what you're doing. I know you're so careful to be courteous to them, and you are. I hope they reciprocate at some point. Just support you and what you're doing. We'll see. It's a dream, but anyway.
Okay, question 3. Question 3: if you could join the Heartbreakers on stage for one song, what would it be? And are you playing and singing, just singing? What's the configuration?
It's Good to Be King. I am playing rhythm guitar. I am singing with the Heartbreakers on that. Yes, that's one I feel like I can sing. There's a lot of Tom Petty stuff. I mean, Tom's vocals, we could do a whole thing on that. I won't digress. But that's one I think I could sing okay. I love that song. One of my favorites. It's just, it's pretty simple to play on guitar, so I think I could perform it.
Yeah.
And I just love that. The other one, I was playing it today. I was playing guitar today. To Find a Friend would be probably second choice. To play that with Ben Mont playing piano.
Oh, could you imagine
that? I'd be just happy with that. Like, just play along with me.
Yeah.
Like one time. Give me 3 minutes of your life.
It'd be like that moment in the performance, I think it was the PBS special, whatever performance, when they do Walls, and there's that moment in it. I've talked about this a lot, so I know I'm boring people here, but when you see the camera angle is looking across the stage from behind Ben Mont, and when Ben Mont starts his solo, Tom and Mike just look over and they're just playing and they're just sat there watching their friend, and that just melts my heart, because it's like, that's what music should be. When even at that level, when you got these guys they don't need to ever put out another record again. They're set for life. Their legacy's established. But when their friend starts playing a wicked cool solo on piano, they both just turn and look at him. I just think that's absolutely beautiful. So yeah, to find a friend, to watch Ben Mont shred that boogie woogie stride kind of, it's such a great, as the kids today say, it's sick. It's a sick part.
That's a sick part. Yeah.
Cool beans. Okay, so who would be your dream opening act at a Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers concert? Who opened when you saw him?
Do
you remember?
I don't remember. I have to say. It's a long time ago. I was 19. I possibly was at the bar having a beer. Well, I think it was legal. I think it was legal then in New York. But anyway, I don't remember. I'm not sure if I saw the opening act. I assume there was one. But anyway, I can give you two answers. So kind of, I just watched Into the Wild again with my 16-year-old son.
Yeah.
And, I'm going to say Eddie Vedder. Here's my first answer. Eddie Vedder solo. So Eddie Vedder, acoustic guitar, ukulele, piano, playing about 8 to 10 songs. I think that would be a really cool vibe opening, not Pearl Jam. It'd be too much, I think. But Eddie Vedder. My other thought, this is more fun, party, the Bacon Brothers. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but I've seen them in small club. They're a ton of fun. They have great kind of poppy, hooky songs. They have a song about Tom Petty's T-shirt.
Yeah.
I think they're big Tom Petty fans, and they're not superstar musicians in the classic sense, but they have superstar power. And I think they'd just be a fun opening act. So that's you go either way. I don't know if Eddie Vedder would open for anybody else. I'm not sure if you could do that.
I think he'd open for Tom.
Well, okay, yeah.
One of the few people I think Eddie Vedder would open for Tom. Right?
I'm not a deep Pearl Jam or Eddie Vedder fan. Like, I don't know a lot of the background, but I have to say, when I've heard Eddie, especially by himself, I'm just in awe, just absolutely blown away. So, and having watched Into the Wild again, hearing those songs there, just, wow, what a powerful soundtrack. So Eddie Vedder, I guess, is number one. Bacon Brothers, number two.
Well, because then he could join the Heartbreakers on stage and he could sing The Waiting with them, right?
Yeah, well, sure.
Done that lots of times, so
yeah.
Okay, so who's your favorite band member other than Tom?
I got to go with Mike. I'm going to go with Mike Campbell. But my reason, Benmont and Mike as musicians, I can't separate them. But Mike's songwriting, I think, is where I'm going to give him the bump. And I know Benmont writes too and all that, but Mike, I guess more prolific and still writing all these songs and releasing new albums. So I'm going to go with Benmont. I mean, go with Mike for that as an added bonus. But they're all wonderful. And Steve Ferrone, I don't know that much about him personally, but I'm not a drummer at all. I don't play drums. I'm not a drummer, nothing. Don't know anything about percussion. But man, I mean, just incredible and the whole band. But I'm going to go with Mike Campbell.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with Mike either, though. I mean, he's just... It is funny because I wouldn't have said, even when I sort of got into Petty, long before I decided to do this podcast, and when I sort of I knew most of the catalog and I liked all of it, I still wouldn't have said Mike Campbell was one of my favorite guitarists, but he damn well is now. Because when you really dig into it, I know obviously you'll find this too, when you sort of really listening, not for, what do you call like leisure reasons, but when you're actually listening for okay, I've got to learn this now, and you listen to some of the stuff that he plays, you just think, yeah, this guy's just tapped into music in a different way than most people is. Like he hears things, he's so good at playing exactly the right thing so often that there's just something else going on there, right? All the great musicians, that's just different. That's a different level.
Yeah, I look, Dare to Dream, one of his new songs. Yeah. That strikes me exactly that way. It's like, it's just, it's just perfect. It's just like, and he's done so many like that, and he keeps doing them. So that's why he gets the bump for things like that. So whether it was with Tom and the Heartbreakers or Tom solo or him in the Dirty Knobs, he just continues to do that. I don't know how he finds the riffs. I don't know how he finds, just adding notes to chords that,
bottomless well of riffs that man is. It's unbelievable.
I don't know how he does it.
Cool. If you could go to see any Tom Petty concert from history that you weren't at, obviously you went to see him, which one would it be? And I've sort of widened this out a little bit with people. If there's not one very specific one, then a tour or an era is an acceptable answer as well.
All right. I mean, I could give you a lot of errors, but I'm going to go with Live at the Fillmore. I just think I bought the box there. I don't buy all the live stuff. I'm not a big live person.
Right.
That's just not how I take my music in generally to listen to it. But that box, to me, that might be the best live recording. I mean, of any band. I don't. Yeah, ever. That's like it is just. It's the sound is perfect. The band is perfect, and I've heard, some people quote unquote criticize it for, too many covers. No. That is what makes it so special. I mean, again, I don't really need to hear Refugee live. I mean, I'm glad there are some Tom Petty hits on there, but it's more interesting to hear him do, Song with Roger McGuinn or cover some songs that he loves and all the different things they're doing on that residency. So I don't know which show. I guess I'd pick the finale show. I suppose that was probably the one, but anything on that tour and that residency, I'm going to go with that. I did watch, though, preparation for today, the Wildflowers, the video, the 95 Chicago show that's online. Yeah. I just watched that yesterday, and I really enjoyed that. And the song choice, it's just what a set list. But I'm going to go with Live at the Fillmore. Final answer.
You can't go wrong with that at all. I mean, like you said, the fact that some of those songs that end up on that album too, some of those songs that they did in that residency, they literally did them at soundcheck. Does everyone know? Does everyone know? Ain't No Sunshine. Okay, were we in E or you figure it out? Yeah, that's the chorus. Yeah, good enough. We'll go for it. And that comes across because sometimes Tom doesn't always sing exactly the right lyrics, or there's breaks. The songs are different, but again, as a musician, as a fan, I want to hear that.
Yeah,
and the fun comes across on that album like nothing else ever. So yeah, I would say for me, it's when I got that and I listened to it, I was like, this is just to have this document of a band at their absolute peak. Oh, what a joy!
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, which is your favorite version of Waltz, Circus or number 3?
Circus. Yeah. I'm going to go with the more Beatles-ish, Sgt. Pepper-ish, I'll call it.
There we go.
I think he's thrown it all in there.
Yeah.
And I love the She's the One soundtrack. I didn't mean to jump over it when I was talking before, but I do consider it as something separate a little bit, even though I think there's so many great songs, and obviously a lot of them came from Wildflowers, but I'm going to go with Circus. I like the production. Some might say overproduced. To me, I wouldn't want every Tom Petty song to sound like that.
Yeah.
But that one I like. But it's nice that we have another version too. I mean, it's great. I'm kind of glad he released both.
Yeah.
I'm always for more. I don't want Wildflowers to be a double album. I want it to be a triple album. I think I'm always wanting more. And if something is a little experimental or a little different, I'm okay with that. It doesn't. I don't feel like watered down to the best. I'm not. I understand Wildflowers what they did, but in general, I'd rather get more. So I'm glad we have both walls, but I'm going with Circus.
It's funny because, and you'll have heard me say this before. When I wrote that question, I thought, well, everyone's going to say Waltz number 3, but it'll be an interesting conversation. I thought, and almost everyone says Circus, and 3 was the one for me for the longest time, to the point where I didn't really actually ever listen to Circus. But when you go back and listen to Circus, that tempo change and the amount of grease that riff gets just because of slowing it down, it becomes it's a completely different song. Just a completely different song. And I think I'm starting to slide a little bit over to the Circus camp now. So.
It's okay. It's okay. That's what makes things interesting, but...
Yeah, let's talk covers, because we've just been talking about covers of Fillmore, but if you could pick any artist to cover any Tom Petty song, which artist and which song would you go with?
Don't know if I'm prepared for this one. I mean, I've heard you ask this question. Well, I'm definitely going to go with what I consider a deep Tom Petty track. Does the artist have to be in their prime now, or could it be
any era,
fantasy?
Yeah.
I'll just stick, because it's in my mind right now. I'm going to go with Square One. All right. I'm going to go with another big influence on me, which is very fantasy. This could never happen. I'm going to go with Harry Chapin doing Square One.
Wow.
I had not planned that. I was going to say somebody else, but I do love Harry Chapin. I'm not a gigantic folky guy, but Harry Chapin grew up in Long Island where I did. He was a big musical influence and all that. Yeah. So I'd just love to hear him do it. I mean, I'd love to hear him do any Tom Petty song, obviously.
His voice would really suit that one too, wouldn't it?
I think so.
I can see that.
He could change the key or move the capo if he wants, but Harry would put the capo way up the neck. I think Cats in the Cradle, I don't know, I play that, and I think it might be at the 8th or 9th fret. It's the highest
That's
key bow.
ridiculous.
It's so hard to play because my fingers can't fit there. I struggle at the 7th fret. Like, a lot of the Beatles stuff is at the 7th fret. That one's higher. So,
Wow.
but anyway, but yeah, I'll go with Harry Chapin, Square One.
I was thinking about this one again the other day, and I was listening to The Police for recreational. I was listening to music recreationally, which I don't get to do very often these days. But I thought, how cool would it be listening to The Police do Fault Lines? Because Copeland could have a lot of fun with that groove, and Sting's voice would be just money on that song. So, cool, I want to hear that now.
That's right. And The Police were right in that genre with Tom Petty and the Cars and the Police and ELO. That was all that radio, like late 70s, early 80s time period for me. The Police, I'm
a big fan. Okay, what song do you most frequently recommend to people who don't know Tom's music?
I know others have said this where it really depends on the person you're recommending it to. So,
it's a terrible question.
And how old are they? And their taste in music. I think, I'm going to go with It's Too Good to Be King. I mean, It's Good to Be King, not too good.
Okay.
It's Good to Be King as the song. I just think a lot of people with different tastes could appreciate that song.
Right.
And while Tom's voice is very Tom Petty, like people might recognize that, I think that style, the orchestration, it's out of the norm.
Yeah.
So I think maybe it would have a more universal appeal. I mean, if somebody's looking for a rocker, that might not be the song they want to hear, even though I consider it a rock song.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
But I'll go with It's Good to Be King. And what's the second part? I'm sorry, it's a two-parter.
That was the last one. I mean, I think too though, with a song like that, I think it's one of those songs that if you don't like that song, chances are you probably won't dig Tom Petty. Like, it gives you a lot of Tom Petty. Like, you get Benmont in there, you get some great guitar in there. There's a lot of stuff in there that everyone's coming through. You might like Refugee, or you might like Even the Losers or something. But I think if you don't like It's Good to Be King, Tom Petty probably isn't for you, and that's okay. You're wrong, but that's okay,
Yeah, I mean, I guess Free Falling would be, another good one to just, if somehow somebody doesn't know that song, I don't know how you could be alive and not have heard that somewhere. Yeah. But if you were a person that never heard it, I mean, that would be a more obvious choice for, like, I don't know, the masses, I'll say.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll wrap up. Last question then. Describe Tom Petty in 3 words.
Cool, calm, collected.
Nice.
I hope nobody said that before. I know it's a cliche, but I mean, cool. Tom Petty is a cool dude. I mean, he looks cool. He acts cool. He looks like a rock star. He acts, and I mean in a positive rock star way. When you watch him perform live, he just is cool. He moves cool on stage. So I mean, I think that this is about fun and moving an audience. So I think it's important. Like some celebrities are stiff on stage or whatever, and Tom is relatively shy, but he still had that coolness about him. So I'm thinking more of live performances, but overall, even in interviews. Tom, we already talked about. He just seems like a very calm person. I'm sure there's some recording in a studio where maybe he yelled at a fellow musician or got frustrated with the producer. I'm sure that exists. Every band has arguments. Every person, every human being loses their temper. So, but setting that aside, he's in the public eye a lot. There's a lot of video running on him a lot. There's a lot of audio. There really isn't much that I'm aware of, like where he just sounds out of control or angry or, So I just think, calm. And I do think that resonates with his fan base. I think that's why it's so positive. And then collected, I think it's the beauty of his songwriting. It's his intelligence. It's putting it all together, putting these incredible melodies with these themes that he wants to explore. So I think to me that, it's articulate, being articulate. being a wordsmith. Obviously, loved the English language, loved playing around with it. So all that, I think he's just a calm, cool, collected person, and it's a wonderful thing. So that is my answer.
I love it. You've tied everything. You've tied in the man, the performer, the artist. That's if you can do that in 3 words, bravo, sir, bravo.
That's hard. These are hard. These are actually hard questions. I've had a lot of. Yeah, I've heard you ask these a lot. So, but no, they're difficult.
Well, I remember doing when I did the 100th episode with John Paulson. I thought, well, this will be easy for me because I've asked it a lot of times. I've had time to think about it, and I was like, oh no, this is really tough. Like, who would ask me? What kind of beast would ask these questions to it? It's not civilized at all. So.
Well, yeah. And I'm sure you said if you asked me next week, I might give you 8 different answers.
Of course.